You call it prudence. You call it being smart. This meticulous act of hoarding every dollar, of guarding every cent as if it were a soldier in a defensive line, feels like the only sane response to a world built on chaos. You watch the others, the reckless ones, spending on fleeting dreams and uncertain ventures, and you feel a quiet, smug superiority. They are playing a game they will lose. You, on the other hand, are building a fortress, brick by painstaking brick. Each transaction you refuse, each small pleasure you deny yourself, is another stone set in your wall against failure, against uncertainty, against the gnawing dread of a future you cannot control. This isn't just about money, it's about power. It's about creating a small, predictable kingdom where you are the absolute ruler. But this is a lie. You are not building a fortress to keep the world out, you are building a cage to keep yourself in. This isn't about wealth, let's be honest about that. It's about silencing the screaming voice inside you that whispers of scarcity and total collapse. Your mind has crafted a brilliant strategy to win the game of life. Don't play. Just don't move your pieces. You hoard them in a corner of the board, believing that as long as they remain untouched, they can't be captured. You see this as a victory of intellect over impulse, a masterful defense. If this truth is already hitting close to home, you know what to do. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And let me know in the comments if you've ever felt this way. It helps more than you know. You've convinced yourself that inaction is a form of protection, that by refusing to plant your seeds, you can't possibly suffer a bad harvest. You stand guard over a pile of potential, calling it security. And every day, that potential rots a little more. Your fear of loss has become so absolute that you have guaranteed it. The mechanism is so elegant in its cruelty, a perfect little machine you built inside your own skull. It starts with comparison, that subtle poison you sip every morning while scrolling through the lives of others. You see their stumbles, their failed ventures, their public mistakes, and your mind meticulously collects them as evidence. See, the world is a minefield. You feel a flicker of smug security, a quiet pride in your own inaction. You call it wisdom. You call it strategic patience. But it's a lie. You are not observing to learn. You are observing to justify your own paralysis. You construct an elaborate narrative where your fear is rebranded as intelligence, and every opportunity you let pass becomes proof of your superior judgment. You stand at the window of your life, watching everyone else in the arena, and tell yourself that the only winning move is not to play. You are not safe. You are just hiding. And this is where the real distortion begins. Because this elaborate defense is not about money. It's about you. It's about that deep, gnawing terror that if you were to truly try, to risk something, to step into the light and give it your all, you would be found wanting. The fear isn't losing money. It's the fear of losing the story you tell yourself about your own potential. As long as you don't act, that potential remains a beautiful, shimmering mirage. It can be anything. But the moment you invest, the moment you commit, you risk discovering your own limits. And that is unbearable. So you use money as the perfect excuse, the ultimate scapegoat. It's not that you're afraid, it's that you're being responsible. It's not that you're paralyzed, you're just waiting for the right time. Your prudence is the most sophisticated cage ever built because you are both the prisoner and the guard. So you fill your days with the rituals of the hoarder. You check the numbers, you update the spreadsheets, you run the projections for a future you are actively preventing from ever arriving. This frantic activity creates the illusion of control, the feeling of purpose. But it is all just noise. It is a carefully orchestrated distraction to keep you from having to sit in the silence and face the emptiness you are trying so desperately to ignore. You are running from the hollow feeling in your own chest, the one that whispers that a life unlived is the same as a life lost. You race through corridors of financial what-ifs, slamming doors on every real possibility, because in those quiet moments, the truth is deafening. The fortress you built to protect your future has slowly, brick by brick, suffocated your present. You didn't save your life from risk, you simply embalmed it. You see them everywhere, don't you? The masses chanting the same hollow mantra of security.
You hear it in the office break room, where colleagues boast about their frugality as if it were a virtue, competing over who denied themselves the most. You scroll through your feed and see them, a digital army of the cautious, celebrating a life of calculated smallness, praising the refusal to spend as the highest form of intelligence. And you absorb it all. You let their chorus of fear become the soundtrack to your own inaction, seeing their shared anxiety and mistaking it for collective wisdom. But it's a lie. This isn't a community of the wise. It's a herd huddled together for warmth, terrified of the world beyond the fence they built together.
You repeat their words, you mimic their caution, you adopt their justifications, because it is so much easier than admitting the truth. You are not one of them by choice, you are one of them by default. And watch how they and you judge the ones who dare to try, the ones who spend the money, the friend who invests in a course, the acquaintance who starts a small side business, the family member who buys a better tool to pursue a craft. You all share that same look, that condescending pity. You whisper among yourselves, "What a waste," or "They'll learn the hard way," framing their courage as naivete. This collective judgment feels good, doesn't it? It's a warm blanket of validation for your own paralysis, a shield against the unsettling glare of their action. You gather their small stumbles and inevitable mistakes as evidence for your case, proving to yourself that standing still was the only logical move. But you are not being logical, you are being cruel. You join the chorus of cynics to drown out the voice inside that is shamed by their bravery. You are not a cautious observer, you are just another stone in the wall they are trying to climb. This shared illusion becomes your internal architecture. Their empty phrases, "better safe than sorry," "a penny saved is a penny earned," are no longer just words. They are the bars of your cage, polished daily with social reinforcement. You see the same quiet panic in their eyes that you feel twisting in your own gut whenever a real opportunity presents itself. It's the fear of being seen, of being measured, of failing in the open. So you all participate in this grand unspoken agreement to play small, to never rock the boat, to praise the stagnant pond and call it a safe harbor. There is a deep, toxic comfort in this shared stillness, the knowledge that you are not alone in your refusal to live. But this comfort is the most dangerous poison of all. You think you found safety in the crowd, but you've only found a more comfortable way to disappear. Let's strip this down to the bone, because this was never about preserving capital. This is about preserving the fragile, shimmering myth of your own untapped greatness. As long as the money sits there, untouched and perfect, your potential remains infinite in your own mind. It's a beautiful, intoxicating promise of the person you could be, the life you could have. But the moment you invested in something real, a skill, a project, a single bold move, you subject that perfect myth to the brutal, unforgiving verdict of reality. And you cannot bear the thought of what that verdict might be. This isn't prudence. It's cowardice dressed in a suit and tie pretending to be a financial strategy. You have meticulously built an entire life designed to avoid a single honest look in the mirror, because you are terrified of who you might see looking back at you. You didn't save your future, you just erased yourself from it. This entire performance is for an audience that doesn't even exist. You curate your inaction like an artist, presenting your paralysis as a masterpiece of strategic restraint, desperately needing the world to see your caution and call it wisdom. You crave their approval for a life you haven't even dared to live. Every time a colleague takes a risk and stumbles, you feel that disgusting secret flicker of relief, a moment of validation for your own fear. See, you were right to hide. But that is a lie. You are not seeking validation. You are begging for an excuse. You are a ghost in the machine of your own life, pulling levers that do nothing, pressing buttons that aren't connected, all to maintain the illusion of control while you slowly fade into nothing. You surround yourself with the equally terrified, trading hollow compliments on your shared prudence, because their fear makes your own feel sane. You are not sane. You are just a collection of echoes in an empty hall. And here is the final, crushing truth.
The thing you've been running from this whole time isn't failure, it isn't poverty, it isn't the judgment of others. You have been running from the suffocating, deafening silence inside your own soul. All the calculations, the spreadsheets, the endless planning for a tomorrow you are actively sabotaging, it is all just noise. It is a frantic, desperate attempt to drown out the quiet, horrifying whisper that tells you there is nothing at the center of you. You built this fortress of frugality not to keep the world out, but to avoid ever being left alone with yourself in an empty room. Because in that silence, you would be forced to feel the vast, barren emptiness where a life was supposed to be. This was never about saving money. It was about building a cage so intricate and demanding that you would never have to notice you were already dead. Imagine for a moment that you are given a chest. It is not filled with gold or jewels, but with something far more potent, seeds, each one humming with a vibrant, almost aggressive life, a silent promise of a future forest. You can feel their potential pulsing in your hands, a deep, resonant song of everything that could be. But then the other voices begin to whisper. They speak of drought, of blight, of the sudden, cruel frost that could kill everything overnight. You see visions of withered stalks and barren fields, a landscape of your own failure.
The fear is a cold hand closing around your throat, and it tells you that the only way to protect this perfect potential is to never expose it to the world. So you find the strongest vault, place the chest inside, and turn the heavy key. You are not protecting the seeds, you are imprisoning your own hope. From the sterile safety of your window, you watch your neighbor. His seeds are common, his soil is rocky, and his work is a brutal, endless struggle against the unforgiving earth. You watch him sweat under the relentless sun, fight back the stubborn weeds, and despair when a late storm threatens to wash away his fragile sprouts. And with every stumble you witness, a quiet, ugly satisfaction blooms within you. See, you were right. The world is a merciless game, and his effort is just a slow, painful march toward inevitable disappointment. You turn from the window and polish the cold steel of your vault, feeling the solid weight of your own superior intelligence. You have outsmarted risk itself. You have preserved your perfect potential, while he wastes his meager existence on a fool's errand. You are not just observing his struggle, you are feeding on it to justify your own paralysis. The years pass, as they always do, completely indifferent to your careful calculations and your strategic patience. The sounds from your neighbor's land begin to change. The grunts of effort are slowly replaced by the laughter of children picking fruit from low-hanging branches. The sight of his struggle is replaced by the deep, cool shade of a thriving orchard, a living, breathing testament to risk, persistence, and faith. A cold dread, heavier than your vault door, begins to settle in your chest. The silence on your side of the fence is no longer peaceful, it is the sound of absolute emptiness. With trembling hands, you finally open your fortress to admire the treasure you so wisely protected. You lift the lid of the chest and are met with a cloud of gray, lifeless dust. The potential, denied the soil, the sun, and the struggle, simply suffocated and died. You didn't prevent the loss of your future, you guaranteed it. You walk the endless, sterile corridors of your own mind, each wall lined with spreadsheets and projections, a monument to a future that will never arrive. Every door you pass is a possibility, a skill you could learn, a tool you could buy, a connection you could make, but the price is written on it, and you refuse to pay. So you keep walking. You tell yourself this is discipline, you tell yourself this is control, but it's a lie. You glance into the polished surfaces of your prison and see distorted reflections of others, the ones who spent their coins and opened their doors. You see their stumbles and call them fools, but you also see them living in rooms you will never enter, and you hate them for it. This is the machine you built, a perfect loop of judgment and envy designed to justify your own stillness. You are the warden of an empty vault, guarding nothing but the ghost of a life you were too afraid to purchase. And in the dead center of this fortress, there is a silence so profound it screams. This is what you've been running from.
all the frantic counting, the obsessive saving, the constant vigilance, it's not about building security. It's about generating enough noise to drown out the horrifying truth of your own emptiness. You have abandoned yourself in this gilded cage, bar by golden bar, convincing yourself that the weight of your unspent coins is the same as the weight of a life well lived. But you know it's not true. To spend the money would mean to step outside, to act, to risk being seen, to risk discovering that the potential you guard so fiercely might not be as great as you imagine. And that is the terror that keeps you locked inside. So you sit in your self-made prison, clutching your cold, useless keys, mistaking the sound of your own rattling chains for the sound of success. You didn't save your wealth, you spent your entire being to protect an illusion. So you heard the phrase, "You must spend money to become wealthy," and you thought it was a secret code for the stock market, a clever trick for flipping assets. You believed it was a financial formula, but that is a lie. It was never about currency. It was courage. The money was never the paper in your wallet. It was the life force sitting dormant in your bones, the potential you locked away in that vault of prudence. And wealth was never the number on a screen. It was the richness of a life that dared to interact with reality, the shade of the tree grown from a seed you were brave enough to plant. You spent your entire existence guarding the river, believing the dam was the treasure. You never understood. The wealth was in the flow, in the power generated by letting go, in the lands nourished by the water you refused to release. You were so terrified of the river running dry that you chose to live in a swamp of your own making. This was never about your bank account. It was about you. You didn't hoard dollars. You hoarded a fragile, untested version of yourself, terrified that if you spent it on a real challenge, you would be found bankrupt. The wealth you avoided was the brutal, beautiful richness of knowing your own limits and your own strengths, a knowledge only earned in the arena. And you know this. You can feel it now, a cold, hard truth settling in your gut.
Every dollar you clutched, every opportunity you dismissed, was another moment you refused to live, another piece of yourself you condemned to that dusty vault. You thought you were preserving your value. But a life unspent, a potential unrealized, a story unwritten, it has no value at all. It is simply a void. The final irony is that in your desperate quest to avoid losing anything, you lost everything. What is the real cost of a life you refuse to purchase?